Most people are spending their entire lives trying to fix what they see on the outside without ever realizing that everything they are experiencing externally is a reflection of what is happening internally. Circumstances, results, income, relationships, confidence, and even repeated struggles are not random events. They are expressions of dominant thoughts, habitual emotions, and deeply rooted beliefs operating beneath conscious awareness. The inner world is the blueprint, and the outer world is simply the construction site following those instructions without question. Every thought carries emotional energy, and every emotional state influences behavior. When a person repeatedly thinks thoughts of limitation, fear, or unworthiness, the mind begins to accept those thoughts as facts. Over time, those accepted ideas become beliefs. Once a belief is formed, it quietly dictates decisions, reactions, and expectations. People don't rise or fall because of luck or talent alone. They move according to the internal image they hold of themselves. If someone sees themselves as behind, unlucky, or incapable, they will unconsciously act in ways that confirm that identity. Even while consciously desiring something more, the mind does not distinguish between imagined experiences and real ones. It responds to emotional intensity and repetition. When someone constantly replays past failures, disappointments, or negative conversations internally, the body reacts as if those events are happening again. Stress hormones activate, confidence shrinks, and the nervous system adapts to survival mode. Living in that internal state creates an outer life filled with hesitation, missed opportunities, and reactive decisions. This is why two people can face the same situation and produce completely different outcomes. The difference is not the event. It is the internal meaning assigned to it. What a person consistently feels about themselves becomes their normal. If frustration becomes familiar, chaos feels comfortable. If struggle becomes an identity, peace feels unfamiliar. The inner world trains the nervous system on what to expect. And the nervous system drives behavior automatically. This is why willpower alone rarely creates lasting change. Willpower operates at the surface, but identity operates at the core. When the inner self-image changes, behavior no longer requires force. Action becomes natural. The outer world always cooperates with the inner world. Opportunities are noticed or ignored based on internal beliefs. Confidence is projected or withdrawn based on internal dialogue. Even perception itself is filtered through belief. When someone believes life is against them, they interpret neutral events as proof. When someone believes growth is inevitable, obstacles become lessons instead of limits. Reality doesn't argue, it reflects. Negative feelings are not caused by circumstances, they are activated by interpretation. The same circumstance can inspire one person and paralyze another. The internal meaning assigned to events determines emotional response. Once this is understood, personal power returns. Instead of blaming the environment, people can begin questioning the stories they tell themselves. Instead of reacting automatically, they can observe their inner dialogue and choose something stronger. The inner world operates on patterns. Thoughts repeated with emotion become habits. And habits form character. Character then produces results. This chain is always active, whether a person is aware of it or not. Awareness is the turning point. When someone becomes conscious of their thinking, they step out of autopilot. They stop being controlled by old programming and begin choosing intentionally. Improving the inner world does not require perfection. It requires consistency. One upgraded thought practice daily shifts emotional patterns. One empowering question repeated regularly rewires perception. Small internal changes compound, just like external habits. The mind learns through repetition, not logic. What is practiced becomes automatic. What becomes automatic defines the future. The moment a person understands that their outer results are not fixed but reflected, they stop seeing themselves as victims and start seeing themselves as creators. Responsibility replaces blame. And with responsibility comes freedom. Changing the inner world is not about denying reality, it is about redefining it from the inside out. When internal alignment begins, external resistance fades. Confidence stabilizes. Decisions sharpen. Direction becomes clear. Life starts responding differently because the signal being sent has changed. Negative feelings are often misunderstood. Most people treat them as enemies, as weaknesses, as signs that something's wrong with it. They try to suppress them, distract themselves from them, or pretend they don't exist. But emotions are not accidents, and they are not punishments. They are signals. They are feedback from the inner world, communicating information that the conscious mind is ignoring or resisting. When understood properly, negative feelings become guides rather than obstacles. Every emotion has a purpose. Fear arises when the mind perceives uncertainty or potential loss. Anxiety appears when attention is split between where you are and where you believe you should be. Frustration surfaces when effort is being applied in a way that is misaligned with expectation or belief. Guilt signals a conflict between values and behavior. These feelings are not trying to stop growth, they are trying to redirect it. Ignoring them is like covering the warning lights on a dashboard while continuing to drive at full speed. Negative feelings intensify when they are resisted. Resistance tells the nervous system that the emotion is dangerous, which amplifies its presence. The more someone tries to push fear away, the more the body holds on to it. The more someone judges themselves for feeling doubt, the deeper that doubt becomes rooted. Emotions demand acknowledgement before they release. They want to be understood, not fought. When a negative feeling appears, it is pointing toward an internal belief that needs attention. Fear often reveals a belief in inadequacy or lack of preparation. Anger exposes unmet expectations or violated boundaries. Sadness highlights attachment to something that has changed or ended. These emotions are invitations to look inward, not signs to retreat. Growth requires listening before acting. Most people allow negative emotions to define their identity. They say, I am anxious, instead of recognizing I'm experiencing anxiety. This subtle difference creates a powerful shift. Emotions are temporary states, not permanent traits. When a person identifies with a feeling, they give it control. When they observe it, they regain authority. Observation creates distance, and distance creates choice. Negative feelings lose their power when they are reframed as information instead of asking, why do I feel like this? The better question becomes, what is this feeling trying to show me? This shifts the mind from judgment to curiosity. Curiosity calms the nervous system. It turns emotional reactions into conscious insights. What was once overwhelming becomes manageable. Emotions also reveal areas of growth. Discomfort is often the sign that expansion is taking place. The mind resists unfamiliar territory even when it leads to improvement. Feeling uncomfortable does not mean you are failing. It often means you are stretching beyond old limits. The emotional body reacts before the rational mind understands what is happening. Interpreting discomfort as danger stops progress. Interpreting it as development accelerates it. Avoiding negative feelings creates stagnation. People who numb emotions through distractions, habits, or denial remain stuck at the same level of awareness. Emotions that are not processed do not disappear, they wait. They resurface later as burnout, self-sabotage, or chronic dissatisfaction. Addressing emotions early keeps energy moving and grows steady. Emotional mastery does not mean eliminating negative feelings. It means learning to move through them without being controlled by them. This requires presence, honesty, and patience. The moment of feeling is allowed without resistance. Its intensity begins to decrease. Acceptance is not surrender, it is clarity. Clarity opens the door to conscious action. Negative feelings are messengers delivering insight about alignment, belief, and direction. When listened to, they refine character and sharpen awareness. When ignored, they repeat louder and longer. Emotional intelligence is not about feeling good all the time. It is about understanding what you feel and using it as guidance. Every emotion contains information that, when interpreted correctly, leads to self-awareness, resilience, and personal power. Most people overestimate what they can change in a short period of time and underestimate what consistent small actions can create over the long run. They aim for massive transformation overnight. And when that doesn't happen, they become discouraged and quit. The truth is that real change rarely announces itself loudly. It happens quietly, incrementally, almost invisibly at first. The power of the 1% rule lies in its simplicity and its inevitability. A 1% improvement does not demand extreme effort or dramatic sacrifice. It requires awareness and intention. It is the decision to be slightly better today than yesterday in one specific area. That might mean thinking one more empowering thought, choosing discipline one, when comfort is available, or responding with patience instead of reaction. These actions seem insignificant in isolation, but the mind and nervous system are shaped by repetition, not intensity. Every small improvement sends a signal to the subconscious mind. It says growth is normal, progress is expected, effort is rewarded. Over time, these signals accumulate and form a new identity. Identity is the driving force behind behavior. When someone begins to see themselves as a person who improves daily, their actions naturally align with that belief. They no longer rely on motivation because consistency becomes part of who they are. The compound effect of small actions is often ignored because it is not immediately visible. Just like interest in a bank account, progress accelerates after enough time has passed. Early on, the results seem minimal, which is why most people abandon the process. They mistake the absence of immediate reward for failure. In reality, the foundation is being built beneath the surface. Discipline practiced in small doses strengthens self-trust. And self-trust fuels momentum. 1% growth also reduces resistance. Large goals trigger fear, overwhelm, and self-doubt. The mind resists what feels too big or uncertain. Small steps feel safe. They bypass internal resistance and allow progress to continue uninterrupted. Instead of fighting the mind, the 1% rule works with it. It makes improvement sustainable. Consistency rewires neural pathways. Each repeated action strengthens the connection associated with that behavior. Over time, what once required effort becomes automatic. This is how habits are formed and how habits shape destiny. A small daily practice in thinking, movement, or discipline eventually becomes a default response. When behavior becomes automatic, change becomes permanent. The 1% approach also builds resilience. Progress is no longer dependent on perfect days or ideal conditions. Even on difficult days, 1% is achievable. This keeps momentum alive and prevents the all or nothing mindset that causes most failures. Missing perfection no longer equals failure because progress is measured by consistency, not intensity. Small improvements change perception. When someone sees evidence of progress, even minor, confidence grows. Confidence is not built by achievement alone, but by keeping promises to oneself. Each 1% improvement is a promise kept. Over time, this strengthens self-respect and belief in personal capability. The 1% rule transforms time from an enemy into an ally. Instead of racing against the clock, time becomes a partner in growth. Daily effort compounds while doubt loses influence. Progress becomes inevitable because it is built into the routine. The most powerful aspect of small improvement is that it shifts focus from outcome to process. Instead of obsessing over distant results, attention is placed on daily actions. This reduces anxiety and increases presence. When attention is anchored in the present, execution improves. Extraordinary transformation is not the result of extraordinary effort applied once. It is the result of ordinary effort applied consistently. 1% improvements accumulate into massive change not because they are dramatic, but because they are repeated. The future is shaped quietly through daily choices that seem small but are never insignificant. The subconscious mind is a silent force directing the majority of human behavior. It operates beneath awareness, storing beliefs, emotional memories, habits, and self-images formed through past experiences and repetition. While the conscious mind chooses goals and makes decisions, the subconscious mind determines whether those decisions are followed through or quietly sabotaged. This is why many people know exactly what they should do, yet find themselves repeating the same patterns. The issue is not lack of knowledge, it's unconscious programming. The subconscious mind learns through repetition and emotional impact. It does not analyze information or judge truth. Whatever is repeated consistently, especially when combined with emotion, is accepted as reality. Words spoken internally carry just as much influence as words spoken aloud. Repeated inner dialogue becomes instruction. Over time, those instructions become automatic responses. When someone repeatedly tells themselves they are behind, unqualified, or unlucky, the subconscious accepts this identity and adjusts behavior accordingly. Awareness is the doorway to change. Without awareness, programming runs unchecked. The moment a person notices a recurring thought pattern, they interrupt automatic behavior. Observation weakens unconscious control. Instead of being carried by old scripts, the individual steps into choice. This shift may feel subtle, but it is powerful. Awareness creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, new direction becomes possible. Reprogramming the subconscious does not require force or struggle. Resistance strengthens old patterns. Change occurs through gentle repetition of new ideas combined with emotional alignment. Affirmations are effective only when they are repeated consistently and felt emotionally. Empty words without feeling are ignored. Emotion is the language of the subconscious. When a new thought is paired with belief, imagination, or gratitude, it embeds more deeply. The subconscious also responds strongly to imagery. Visualization activates the same neural pathways as physical experience. When someone repeatedly imagines themselves acting confidently, speaking clearly, or handling challenges calmly, the subconscious begins to accept that behavior as familiar. Familiarity reduces fear. What once felt uncomfortable becomes normal. The mind moves toward what it recognizes. Old programming does not disappear instantly. It weakens through lack of reinforcement. Each time a negative thought is noticed and replaced with a constructive one, the old pattern loses strength. Each time a new behavior is repeated, a new pathway is formed. Over time, the new pattern becomes dominant. Consistency, not intensity, determines which pattern wins. Self-talk plays a critical role in this process. The tone and language used internally shape emotional state. Harsh, critical inner dialogue creates stress and contraction. Supportive, directed inner dialogue builds confidence and clarity. The subconscious listens constantly. It accepts the most repeated message, regardless of whether it is helpful or harmful. Reprogramming also requires patience. The subconscious operates on cycles formed over years. Expecting immediate transformation creates frustration. Frustration signals doubt, which reinforces old beliefs. Progress is often invisible at first. The absence of visible change does not mean the process is failing. Internal shifts precede external results. Daily rituals reinforce subconscious change. Morning intention, reflection, visualization, and controlled breathing all signal safety and focus to the nervous system. When the nervous system feels safe, the mind becomes receptive. Learning and change occur more easily in calm states. This is why emotional regulation is foundational to mental reprogramming. As new patterns become established, behavior changes naturally. Discipline no longer feels forced. Confidence becomes stable. Decisions align with values automatically. The subconscious, once an obstacle, becomes an ally when programmed intentionally. It supports growth instead of resisting it. Identity evolves quietly through repeated awareness and practice until the new way of being feels natural and effortless. Every human being lies within the boundaries of an internal self-image, whether they are aware of it or not. This self-image is the mental picture a person holds about who they are, what they deserve, and what they are capable of achieving. It operates like an invisible thermostat, setting the upper and lower limits of performance. No matter how much talent, opportunity, or effort exists, results rarely exceed this internal setting for long. When success goes beyond the self-image, discomfort appears, and behavior unconsciously adjusts to return to what feels familiar. Self-image is formed early through experiences, feedback, comparisons, and repeated emotional impressions. Words spoken by authority figures, early successes, and failures, and social conditioning all contribute to how a person sees themselves. Over time, these impressions solidify into beliefs. Once a belief about identity is accepted, the mind works tirelessly to prove it correct. Evidence that supports the belief is noticed and reinforced, while evidence that contradicts is ignored or dismissed. This is why change feels difficult even when the desire is strong. People try to change habits, strategies, or environments without addressing the identity underneath. But behavior is a reflection of identity. Actions always align with how someone sees themselves. If a person sees themselves as inconsistent, discipline will feel unnatural. If they see themselves as undeserving, opportunities will be avoided or mishandled. The ceiling is not set by circumstances, it is set by perception. Raising the self-image requires conscious revision. The mind must be given new evidence of capability and worth. This does not happen through wishful thinking alone. It happens through repeated action that slightly stretches the comfort zone. Each small win sends a message to the subconscious that the old identity is no longer accurate. Over time, these messages accumulate and the internal image begins to shift. Language plays a powerful role in shaping self-image. The way a person speaks about themselves reinforces identity. Statements made in moments of emotion carry even more weight. When someone repeatedly labels themselves as unlucky, weak, or behind, those labels become instruction. Replacing these labels with empowering descriptions, even before they feel true, begins the process of change. The subconscious does not require proof first. It responds to repetition. The self-image also determines emotional responses. Challenges are interpreted based on identity. A person with a limited self-image sees obstacles as confirmation of inadequacy. A person with an expanded self-image sees the same obstacles as feedback for growth. The event does not change. The interpretation does. This interpretation influences persistence, creativity, and resilience. Improving the self-image does not require perfection or comparison. Comparison weakens identity by shifting focus outward. Growth strengthens identity by anchoring progress inward. Measuring against yesterday instead of against others builds confidence. Every small improvement reinforces a new standard of self-respect. The mind is always working to stay consistent with identity. When identity changes, behavior follows effortlessly. Discipline becomes natural. Confidence stabilizes. Decisions align with long-term goals instead of short-term comfort. This alignment creates momentum that appears like motivation but is actually clarity. Negative emotions often signal a mismatch between current behavior and desired identity. Instead of resisting these emotions, they can be used as guides. Discomfort indicates that the self-image is expanding. The tension felt is not weakness, it is adjustment. Growth stretches identity before it stabilizes. Sustainable success is not about doing more. It is about becoming more. When the internal image evolves, external results have no choice but to follow. The ceiling rises quietly as self-perception improves through deliberate action, intentional language, and consistent self-respect until the person naturally operates at a higher level without force or struggle. Motivation is often treated as the engine of success, but motivation is unstable by nature. It rises and falls based on mood, environment, and external circumstances. Relying on motivation alone places progress at the mercy of feelings. When energy is high, action follows. When energy drops, consistency disappears. Discipline, on the other hand, operates independently of emotion. It is a decision repeated daily, regardless of how one feels in the moment. Discipline is not punishment or restriction. It is self-direction. It is the ability to act in alignment with long-term intention instead of short-term impulse. While motivation asks, do I feel like it today? Discipline says, this is who I am becoming. Identity-based action does not require emotional excitement. It requires commitment. This commitment strengthens every time it is honored. The brain is designed to conserve energy and seek comfort. Left unchecked, it will always choose the easiest option. Discipline trains the mind to tolerate discomfort in service of growth. Each discipline action expands the comfort zone slightly. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes normal. This is how discipline reshapes identity. A person does not become disciplined by waiting to feel disciplined. They become disciplined by practicing discipline. Consistency is the bridge between intention and transformation. Inconsistent effort produces inconsistent results, regardless of talent or desire. Consistency creates rhythm, and rhythm creates stability. When actions are repeated daily, they become predictable, and predictability reduces resistance. The mind prefers routines because they require less decision-making energy. Once a routine is established, discipline requires less effort. Motivation is often externally driven. Praise, rewards, urgency, or fear can trigger it. Discipline is internally anchored. It does not depend on recognition or immediate results. This internal anchor creates resilience. When progress is slow or invisible, motivation fades, but discipline continues. This continuity is what produces long-term change. Small acts of discipline build self-trust. Each time a person follows through on a commitment, they reinforce the belief that they are reliable. Self-trust is foundational to confidence. Without it, doubt undermines action. With it, challenges are approached with calm determination. Discipline, therefore, is not just about behavior, it's about relationship with self. Discipline also simplifies decision-making. When standards are clear, choices become easier. There is less internal debate and less emotional exhaustion. Energy is conserved for execution instead of negotiation. This clarity reduces stress and increases effectiveness. Life becomes less reactive and more intentional. Waiting for motivation often leads to cycles of starting and stopping. Each restart weakens confidence. Discipline breaks this cycle by removing emotion from the equation. Action is taken because it is scheduled, not because it feels good. Over time, results create their own motivation, but by then, motivation is no longer necessary. Discipline does not mean rigidity, it means alignment. It allows flexibility within structure. Structure provides stability, and stability supports growth. Without structure, effort scatters. With structure, effort compounds. Identity evolves through repeated behavior, where discipline is practiced daily. The identity of someone who falls through replaces the identity of someone who tries. This shift is subtle but powerful. Actions no longer require force because they are consistent with self-image. Progress accelerates quietly. True freedom comes from self-mastery. Discipline creates freedom by removing internal chaos. It replaces emotional unpredictability with steady forward movement. Motivation may start the journey, but discipline carries it forward day after day, shaping character, strengthening resolve, and building a life guided by intention rather than impulse.